everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm going to start with two questions, but I need you to type in the answers in the chat box. One is, have you heard of the Warlis before? And in what context? One word answers, yes or no, and in what context? Okay? So, and hopefully Farokh will collate it for me and just give me an idea, because I'd really like to know. Thank you. Today, I'm going to take you on a photographic tour of the mystical world of the Warlis. A picture says 1,000 words. So I thought that I would share my photographs, which I've taken over the last 30 years, to cover topics, of course, like the history, their varied occupations, like agriculture, the architecture of their houses, their unique customs, managed traditions, and of course, their paintings.
Okay, Phiroza, about 20 people have said that they have heard about the Warlis through their arts, traditional paintings, and culture. And we've got some people who are from Dahanu.
Okay, fine. This is a map of Dahanu Taluka. As you can see, it's on the west coast of India in Maharashtra. Dahanu Taluka and the Warli tribe date back to a long time ago. Dahanu Taluka has 66% Warli population, and they are a living heritage. Dahanu Taluka was notified as an ecologically fragile zone in 1991, partly because of the environment, but also because of the tribals. Here is a map of 10 Gau Devas. Why does this now coming down? Or sacred groves. Okay, we will be looking at the totems in these sacred groves later on in my presentation. The history of the Warlis can be traced back to the Neolithic age, nearly 2500 BC. The paintings which have been found in the Bhimbeka caves in Madhya Pradesh are very similar to the Warli geometric figures. And this has been also mentioned by Yashodhara Dalmia in her book. Here is a picture of a Warli man. The typical garb was a loincloth and a headdress. And he's carrying a kuchada or a matka. They have about 8 types of matkas, and it has locally brewed alcohol in it. These are the Warli women dressed in their 9-yard sari, and this is their Sunday best. They're about to go for a wedding. They don't really wear much jewelry, but this black gati, of course, shows that they are married. Oh, I'm so jealous of these children because they have so much of freedom and they're so resourceful at the games that they play with and what they use. Yes, fashion has finally reached the Warlis as well. As you can see, these girls with their matching blouses and their skirts, but they have to babysit a lot of their siblings. Here you can see the transition of clothes from the 9-yard sari of the first 2 ladies to the 6-yard sari, and eventually the girl at the back is wearing salwar kurta. Here are women returning from the bazaar. The lady in front has not put her dupatta up because if she's unmarried, she doesn't need to, or of course, even if they're working on the farm. And that's probably her mother at the back with her 2 siblings. Yes, the Warlis were originally forest dwellers and hunters and gatherers. Okay, they used to hunt wild game and they used to live off the land. But in the era of colonialism, the British forced them out of the forests. They gave us our first railway line with wooden sleepers. Thank you. But they plundered our forests. No, thank you. I think that they were scared of the Warlis. They didn't understand their customs, especially of the Bhagat or the shaman, praying to these wooden and stone totems in the forest. They wanted to control them. They thought that they would pose a risk for them to cut the wood. And therefore, they forced them to settle down at the foothills and adopt an agro-pastoral lifestyle. These settlements or paras are a group of huts where there was a source of water mostly. And the first family got maybe enough fields for them to grow paddy to last them for the year. But what happened when their children married? And that is why today you have the Warlis who have become laborers as well as migrant workers, unfortunately. Yes, they used to live in huts made from natural recyclable materials, back to nature, which is what we are looking at today. And this is their sustainable lifestyle. The walls are made of a karbi reed and they're thatched with hay, which is, of course, needs replacement every year. But the walls can breathe. There is a science to it. Remember this weed, this strobolanthus, blooms once in 5 to 7 years like the bamboo. And the year it flowers, no Warli in the whole of Dahanu Taluka will cut it. And that is what we say is the ecological wisdom. They know they will not get the next generation. And then we say that they are uneducated. I really wonder. Still, the Warlis go back to the forest for all their needs, especially firewood, but also for the tubers and for medicinal plants, hunting game, and of course for recreation. They love to go back to the forest. Now we come to the first sense of agriculture. Agriculture was done, still practiced in a very traditional way. And this is the rab basket. We will come to it in more detail. It has to carry dry leaves and twigs, and that is why it is so huge. Warlis, are using their pictures to convey messages. So this is a pictorial diagram of the lady walking down the hill from the forest with these dry leaves. Yes, rab is a method of subsistence agriculture. First, the fields are covered with cow dung. They harvest the crop maybe in the month of October, and then they have Diwali in November, and after that they start the process all over again. So they start covering them with cow dung they collect on a daily basis. This can take months. Then eventually in May they collect the dry leaves and the twigs, and they set fire to it. They were probably the first practitioners of shifting cultivation. And as you can see, if they clear a piece of land, this is where the word varal originated. So varal is a piece of land which has been cleared in the forest. And the people who do it, the community, are called the Warlis. This is traditional agriculture, and it is very ecologically sound. Remember, the cow dung is organic manure, and the ash after burning gives you nutrients, as well as there's another thing. It burns the seeds of the weeds of the previous year. If it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to transplant the saplings grown in a nursery, and within that time, the fields would have been overrun with weeds otherwise, if they did not resort to this rab or burning. Yes, their life revolves around the seasons. It has to. But yet, they are dependent on the vagaries of nature. That is why they worship all the elements. The cycle starts with the first rains, where they worship the Pausya Deva, and ploughing, followed by ploughing and sowing. Here you can see the nursery in front, along with the ploughing going on, and at the back, there are people doing the transplanting. After they finish the transplanting, they will have another ceremony called the Koli Bhaji ceremony. Here you see a Warli farmer ploughing with the traditional wooden plough. As you can see, the two bullocks are not the same size because all of them do not own cattle. They can hire a pair for the price of maybe 1.5 bags of paddy, and I've heard the going price this year was between 500 and 700 rupees. Look at this bamboo framework. This is what I call a hands-free raincoat. It's called the Urli or the Irla. And of course, he has his two bullocks yoked to the traditional plough. Transplanting will take place when these saplings are 2 to 3 weeks old. And it's so convenient. As you can see, he's bending down with his hands free, and yet he's protected from the rain. It's a community activity, and they will call their neighbors, you come and help me till I finish my fields, and then I will help you. And this is what strengthens their community. Here is a collage of stages of paddy cultivation that I have clicked over the years. And this is a painting by Jivya Soma Mashe, who's a master painter. We will talk about him more later, showing the stages of growing paddy, starting from transplanting to harvesting. And of course, you have the god who they pray to. They're very God-fearing. They're more in awe of their god. And that's very important for them. This is how I will be showing you the paintings next to the relevant slide. Stall feeding, a very practical solution. How to keep the cattle out of the rice fields? They have extensive rice fields and they cannot afford to put a boundary to them. So for those 4 months of the year, the cattle are either tied up or sent out along with the cow herd. And for me, I can keep my gate open and not worry about the cattle entering my farm and eating up my plants. Yes, they have a temporary monsoon hut near their fields, like the summer and the winter palace. And some of them even make it a second home. They are very, very adept at hut building. I've taken this picture in the month of June, and they finished this hut within less than 2 weeks. That is the ecological wisdom that they have from generation to generation. They have learnt it. You can see the raised plinth at the bottom. We will talk about that also later. A typical Warli homestead. If you read Remo, he says, do not call a Warli house a house, it's called a homestead. Luckily, this gentleman, Nausha, who is my overseer, can afford to have his fields next to his house. Look at the typical Warli house. It has nice carvy walls, okay, covered with cow dung and geru, and it has tiled roof. They keep the plow in front of the house to show that I own land, happy I own land. Luckily, he owns one bullock as well. This is taken last year's crop, which is fully ready for harvesting. Another interesting story, my second Mukaddam has 5 children. So he decided to extend his house. The first year, he could not afford the money or the time to build it before the monsoon. So he used coconut palms, which of course he took from my farm. So the coconut palms are relatively free and the work is much faster because they occupy more space. So he made his walls out of them and then covered them, of course, with geru. And here this opening is being kept for the bathroom. There he is, Suresh Kalanda, and his wife Sunit. And they have 5 kids. Some of them are playing at the back. As you can see, this remaining is still to be plastered. Unfortunately, now the carvi has got endangered. And therefore, these are being made with jawar stalks, which also last 6 to 7 years. It's the discovery they have made. And some of them have started growing jawar on the hilly tracks. Since his house is so big, he can store his paddy indoors, which is convenient. So then there's no tension. Sometimes you get showers even in October after it has been cut. That's a picture of his mother and his daughter. So you are seeing 3 generations of the Kalanda family. And that's his house, which is still got the coconut palms on it. And this open veranda is very, very important to them. Yes, these are 2 more of his sons. And as you can see, the coconut leaves have still not been plastered with the cow dung. Yes, Warli huts need ongoing maintenance, especially plastering the floor with a slurry of cow dung has to be done maybe once a fortnight. As you can see now, the tiles are being replaced by AC sheets, which is much more convenient to build. But the smart Alec put all AC sheets on his roof and he realized his house became like an oven. So therefore now he had to cover them with hay or paddy stalks to counter that effect. And we all know that asbestos shoots are not good for health. And the government is giving them at a very subsidized rate to the Warlis. The interesting point I want you to observe in this house is the raised plinth. We buy a flat on the ground floor and with the first monsoon, it is flooded. And we have destroyed furniture and lakhs of rupees. According to the lay of the land, sometimes this plinth will even be up to 3 feet in height. I have photographs of rubble masonry. And this open veranda or the otla is very, very important to them. The children can play here, the elders can sit and watch the world go by, and it is a place for socializing. As you can see, the roof has now nearly become fully AC sheets. Yes, the open space can also be used to hang the jholi of the child because the mother can be cooking outside. Most of them are extending their houses. This is a 12-pillar framework of a house, as you can see, is being extended. He has joined the old house and probably the cow shed at the back. And this is the framework I saw newly built of a 9-pillar hut. They may not be architects or engineers, but all the houses will be perfect. Because, believe me, if these batons are not aligned, when we put the roof on top, the tiles on top, they're going to leak. So you can imagine how skilled they have to be, okay, to achieve this. And this is stuff that they have learned from their forefathers by watching and doing. Here is another practical aspect, the lean-to, which they store firewood. Again, they will start after Diwali because they know in the monsoon, the wood is going to be wet. And so therefore, it's going to take longer to burn. So they collect it for the whole, till the monsoon. They normally go out in the open. They never had toilets till now. But some of them are becoming a little conscious. So I was amused when I saw this improvised bathroom. This was a brushwood bathing area. And wherever they will be using washing their clothes or their vessels, they will grow herbs and even flowers nowadays. I found that very interesting. So they're very conservative as far as use of water is concerned. Yes, this is one of my favorite pictures. Can you see these concentric patterns on the floor? It's called Bhauracha Swaran, and there is a story behind it, which unfortunately we will not have time for today. But I want you to do something for me, all of you. Put your hand out in front and then move it from side to side. I hope you all are doing it. And then lean forward by 2 inches and do it again. Now, I hope this gives you an idea how they have got this concentric circles. The lady sits in the middle probably and takes the slurry of cow dung, and then she rotates it on either side. Then she moves 2 feet to the side and repeats the pattern. So this is how they use economy of movement and space, and they get this neat effect. These are storage bins, again, an example of indigenous knowledge. These are storage bins to store their paddy for the whole year. It is coated with cow dung. And this is Janu, my painter's paddy, which I have seen stored for beyond a year. If you store it in a metal container, believe me, it will get weevils and it will get spoiled. But not in this kangri, which is made of bamboo and coated with cow dung. This is the bamboo framework which you can buy at the weekly bazaar. And it costs between 150 and 200 rupees. Can you compare that to the price of a metal container of the same volume? You have any idea? And that's how frugal they are in their living. When I came across this house, I was taken aback because this was about 40 years ago on the way to Aswali Dam, because I had not seen a Warli painting on the outside wall. We will come to that later. But what I want you to observe is this, the beginning of ventilation, which is equivalent to our windows, which they have started incorporating in the houses. And now they leave the strip on top also unfinished so that they can get the ventilation. They're getting smarter and smarter. Yes, that was my opening slide. Art is a form of prayer for them. And there's a story behind this pattern, which you can see. After they harvest their rice, they pound it, they grind it, they make a paste of it, and they dip their mutti, this is called the mutti, into it, and then stamp it on their door. The dots are, of course, with their fingers. And this is to say that I have got a plentiful harvest. And also to thank Kansari, who is the goddess of grain. There are 3 main gods. Dhartari is Mother Earth, where they are planting, the plowing. They have Kansari, and then they have Gautari. Gautari is the cow, which is used for the plowing. So this is the connection, everything that they do. Now here is a Warli painting done by Vijay Mashe of the same thing. You can see these handprints on the walls of the house. And this is a dance to go with it. It's called the Kamri dance, done only by men. And this one doesn't have a musical instrument because it's done down the gold kati. And they have gungrus on their feet. And so therefore that will be giving the music. These figures you can see are probably spirits when they have this sort of halo around their head. They believe in the supernatural. Oh yes, they do. I have a very amusing story to tell you about the compound. I wanted to grow a vegetable garden, and my husband said it's going to cost me more with with barbed wire and cement poles than any of the vegetables you will ever get from it. And I said, just a minute. And I called my maid in my house, who of course is a Warli. Yeshwadi, ikre. Mara compound banunde. She took about a week maybe to do it, right? Using what was available. And believe me, this compound is more animal proof and more thief proof than your barbed wire and cement poles. I have seen the Warlis with agility when they're working on my fence, climb up the barbed wires and jump to the other side with absolutely no hesitation. And so if someone breaks into this, I will know that they have broken into it at least. And that is their, again, the ecological wisdom. How many of you heaved a sigh of relief? I mean, rather a sigh of amazement. Yes, this fishing platform was really amazing. It's an engineering marvel. The water is being channelized, okay, with the leaves bundled on either side. And then they don't have to worry because it's monsoon. As the level rises or decreases, the fish will still get trapped because of the gradient of this fishing net. This is 2 kilometers from my house at Raitali. And they still rebuild it every year. Amazing fishing traps they make out of bamboo. All homemade. Look at their skill. Look at their ideas. And then we say they are uneducated. You can see that this funnel-shaped cone is inserted into the cylindrical outer casing. And they make this at home out of bamboo. It's very amusing to see the women in the monsoon and the children fishing with anything. Here they're using a net, but they even use their saris to catch fish. And believe me, because it is now the month of June, they have finished harvesting their crop in the month of October. So it's not going to last them beyond 5 months. So they are living on rice gruel or page. And they supplement it with a rice curry. Even one fistful of fish will make them a very tasty fish curry. I have eaten it and I can vouch for it. Yes, this here again is a Warli painting done by Jivya Mashe of a fishing net. Look how intricate it is. Yes, and can you see the living creatures inside? Oh my gosh, they will know the difference between how many legs the crab has, how many the lobster has, whether it has pincers or not, the shrimp and the prawn, what is the difference between them, and all the other creatures. They observe them very closely and then they draw them. Yet, their paintings have no sense of proportion. For them, all living things are as important as human beings. And that is why you can see the figures are drawn as big or small as the fish. I have another picture of Jivya actually doing this net, and it's mind-boggling. Now we come to the musical instruments. Yes, the tarpa is famous. It is like a symbol of the Warlis, but it is made of complete natural materials. Here is a dudi, dried gourd, and then with beeswax. Can you see that? It is connected to 2 pipes which have notches in them, okay, to give you different melodies or tunes. And then with probably string made from agave. There is the trumpet. I hope yours is not getting covered. And made from dried palmyra leaves. This is a wind instrument and you need a lot of lung power to play it. Again, here is a painting by Jivya. By the way, I've downloaded these paintings from the net. I cannot afford to buy Jivya's paintings because they're very, very expensive. Here he has drawn this tarpa larger than life, but there are tarpas which are bigger than human beings. Yes, there are many, many types of varieties of tarpas. It is amazing. And as you can see, his circle of dancers is not perfect circle. Unfortunately, the painters today are becoming so much more geometric and they're taking out the fluidity from the paintings. I was very happy to see at the Kalagoda Festival, the Warli instruments being sold. Yes, let them capitalize on the fascination of city folk for this unique instruments. This is the Gangli instrument, which is normally made from twin pumpkins because it's used in religious ceremonies. So can you imagine, very rarely you would get a twin pumpkin growing on a vela and then it has to be used. They color these, but they're still functional. My sister's son-in-law is a professional trumpet player in America and he took this instrument all the way to America and he could not believe that it played. After a year, it cracked because of the dryness there. So I sent another one with my sister the next year. The best way to store a tarpa, of course, is to hang it because it's very fragile. Remember that. And to carry it in hand luggage is another pain. Now we come to the tarpa dance. Yes, it is unique to the Warlis. And they perform this dance to the lilting tune of the chala of the tarpa player. It is the tarpa player who will decide when they change the direction, when they change the step, and when they change the tempo. Okay, it reaches a crescendo at one point, and I have tried to dance with them, with the women also, and not been able to keep pace with them because it's really crazy. Now you can get an idea of how a village or a pada is, where you have a row of houses nearby, next to each other. This is at Navnath, where Rajesh stays. Here again is a drawing by Jivya Soma Mashe of the tarpa dance. Look at it. Doesn't it look as if they're moving? Doesn't it look three-dimensional? And that is what is amazing about Jivya's paintings. Yes, it gives that fluidity of movement. The men and women, if you look closely, they're not in any particular order, and they're clasping their hands behind their backs in an open-ended circle. This open circle is very, very important and symbolic for the Warlis. They believe that death is not the end of life, but the beginning. And this cyclic nature of time is played out in all spheres of their life. It can be seen in the annual cycle of work, thanksgiving, enjoyment, and then work again. As I told you, after they harvest their crop in Diwali and they have their feasts and festivals, they start work again in preparation of the next year. Here he has also showed 3 other type of dances. We will come to this one in detail later on. This was the puja which I attended, after which they were doing that dance in the village. And it's the Nawabad Puja. The rice has been harvested, pound in the house. We will show you the ukhal and the musal, put in these leaves, made into these small things to pray to with the coconut, and their god, which is a kuldev, which is only one house in the whole village will have it, which has these silver goddesses. I'll show you the photograph later of Himai Devi in this basket, and then they are washed, re-energized, and put back on the fresh crop. They also worship the musical instruments like the tarpa and the gangli because they think that music is as important. They're thanking the Kansari goddess, who is now the goddess of grain, for a bountiful harvest. They're so, so grateful. When we are told attitude of gratitude, these people live it. Now we come to the musical instruments. This is the kaheli. It's like a metal clarinet played at different pujas. Here again, you need a lot of lung power. This is the kamri drum, which has this V shape, and is played at the Kaj of the death ceremonies. It has a very, very monotonous tune, but they can play it for hours and hours because it's an all-night vigil that they have to go to. The dole or the drum also has the dole naach to go with it, to accompany it. Yes, this is an amazing drawing by Madhukar Vadu. In the book I will talk about later, where he has shown 21 different musical instruments of the Warlis. Most of them are pavis or different types of pipes. And then you have a trumpet, you have the dumsa dhol, you have cymbals, then you have like trinkets, and then you have the gore stick, which is the stick which is used in the dance in the middle. Even their drums are of different shapes and different sizes. This is a picture by Madhukar. This is not my picture, the gore dance, because I don't think they wear this headdress anymore. And when they do it somewhere near Jawar side. It's only done by men. And here is the painting done by Jivya of the same dance. As you can see, they have these piles on their gungrus on their feet. They're using sticks. And this man in the middle has this stick, which is the gold khati, okay, which is used by the last person in the tarpa dance. The tarpa player is in the middle. I forgot to mention the tarpa dance, the dancers will never turn their back on the tarpa player because they respect it. This is a different type of portrayal. It's a diagrammatic representation of the Dor dance wearing the headdress done by Madhukar. Now we come to the wedding. Yes. This is the most important ceremony in this community. It's probably the origin of the Warli drawings also, Warli paintings. I will not talk about the Chauk just now, but I will talk about this, which is the Pankrisya, which is the 5-headed god. And it's called the Dev Chauk. The middle one is called the Lagna Chauk, which is the origin of Warli paintings. And this is the Dev Chauk, which has the 5-headed god called the Panchkrisya on a horse. And the horse represents vigor and vitality. Very important for them. This is the bride and groom. This is my painter's son, Janu's son, Sanjay. We will talk about him later with his wife. I would like to mention that his wife is 6 months expecting in this because the Warlis do not believe in any taboo for premarital sex. At the same time, they do not marry out of their community. And if the girl gets pregnant, then the society puts pressure on the boy to marry her. Because after all, it is a natural urge. During the pre-wedding preparations, the lady of the house draws a pattern with rice flour around the ukhal, which is a natural depression in the ground, in the floor. And it's called Chauk Bharne. And this is a geometric pattern, as you can see. And maybe this is also the origin of the Warli paintings. Chauk Bharne. Mandap. Then they put up a mandap, okay, to establish the mandap devta. And they use the branch of the umbar tree. Umbar is fig tree, okay? And it's very important because it is to invite the kul devta, which is the devta of the village, to come and bless the couple. These are small rituals which take place, small rites. And believe me, the wedding is a 4-day ceremony. It extends over 4 days. And many of these rites are carried out. This is an overlay done by the Suhasins, okay, who are married women whose husbands are still alive. And you know what they tell the groom? They tell him not to shirk his responsibilities and not to forget his parents. Isn't that sound advice? I think we need to, all of us, give it to our children. Here the groom is being given symbolic purification bath. And these 4 matkas represent the 4 directions, north, south, east and west. And the coconut represents the embryo or life. They will be made to sit on that patla and be given a bath. But the water has to be brought from the village well. Even in our Parsi thing, we have a similar thing where the water should be brought from the well for the religious ceremonies. Now we come to the ukhal. Yes. The rice is pounded in this ukhal, which is, every house has it, by this heavy wooden stick called the musal. And believe me, in the olden days, every day's quota of paddy was taken out of that kangri or the bean and it was pounded. But today, of course, customs are changing and they're taking their rice to the mill and they're using polished rice. But they're still growing it. This is being done during a wedding because they need the rice paste for the ceremonies, right? And they're pounding it again. 2 of them do it together in unison. But it is a skill and it requires a very good tempo because otherwise, I have tried doing it and I've smashed my fingers very badly. This is very, very heavy because it's made of ebony wood, they say. Now we come to the Lagna Chowk. The Lagna Chowk is as important as the wedding itself. It has to be done by the Suhasins, who are the unmarried women. Sorry, the married women whose husbands are still alive. And they originally used to do it with rice paste and a wooden stick. Unfortunately, due to commercialization, the men have started doing it now. And that's why they have these perfect squares and geometrical figures, even though they do not use a ruler to draw this. I have witnessed them. This is their intrinsic talent that they have. The wedding will be performed by the Suhasin or the priestess, again, who are married women. And so all the functions were performed by women. They were given so much of importance. This is a completed chowk. And I cannot go into the details about it. You can see the ornate squares and the elaborate patterns. And believe me, it's replete with symbolism. And maybe after the talk, if somebody wants to know, I can go into the details of it. But suffice it to say that the goddess Palgata is giving an invitation to come to bless the couple. And therefore, she's drawn in the middle here. There she is, 2 triangles, along with the musical instruments, a ladder, the sun, the moon, the comb. And then, of course, we have all these represents different things. Again, you have the Pankrisya, which I talked about. So this is the Lagna Chowk, and this is the Dev Chowk. Even these 5 cattle called Banjara have some significance. Nowadays, they've started writing the names of the couple with the date on the chowk. As you can see, 2 brothers are going to get married here, Mohan and Parshu. Their wives are Naushi and Anusha. And where's the date? Okay, it's somewhere on the right. This was last year. This chowk will be unveiled at midnight. All the ceremonies take place at midnight. And it is done in the bride as well as in the groom's house on day 1. After that, the groom will go to the bride's house, give her a bride price, which is dowry, and then bring her to his house. And on day 3, the same thing is repeated where both the couple will go back to the bride's house. And with dancing and singing, of course. For them, all the ceremonies are joined with drink, dance, fun, and no work at all. As you can see, the guests are being entertained with alcohol. Here, the Bhagat is performing the puja. Yes. The 2 brothers are sitting in front of the chowk. And the elder brother had living. He had a wife even as a child, okay, living with him. And at that point, they could not afford to get married because it is a very expensive item. And it's okay in their community. That's fine. So therefore, many people do the 2 brothers wedding together at a later stage when they can pool their resources and do it. And it's fine. And there are some people who are very, very poor, who cannot even afford a wedding. So on the deathbed, they will be anointed with the haldi and the kunku, and that will be their sealing of the marriage. These are probably the two priestesses. Yes, they are sitting there with the divalaya, which is the lamp. Okay? And they know the folklore by heart. They will sit there for hours and sing their songs. And I would wonder that, are they repeating the same thing or the other? But one day I witnessed where one of them stopped the other one and said, "Oh, you forgot that line." So that means they do know what they are saying. Here is my Shendi Bhagat, and he's performing the puja. Palgata, the goddess of fertility, is asked to bless the couple. And they use very simple fruits, of course. I mean, simple things like the coconut. Then you have the bananas, you have rice. Agarbatis are probably a new inclusion. The diva and the red cloth. Of course, the supari and the kharak are also used there. As I told you, the boy has to go with the bride price to the bride's house. She's given at least 3 sets of clothes. And the story behind it, once I asked them why, said one to wear, one to wash, and one while it dries. They do not have cupboards. They don't believe in materialism. They hang their clothes from the bamboo in their houses. No stress when you get up in the morning, what shall I wear? So how many of you are going to go home and throw out your clothes and keep 3 pairs? I've not been able to do that till today. But then we say we want to live stress-free. They're also given the couple enough paddy to last them for the whole year, so they can have fun and procreate. Another very interesting custom about them is that the son builds a house next to his parents' house. So he has his mother to babysit, but no kit. They have a separate kitchen. Remember that. A very, very practical setup, but I don't know for how long it's going to be able to be carried on because of constraint of space. Here is the winnowing fan or the supra, which holds the basinga. And this headdress used to be made of flowers, as I'll show you in the next slide. Unfortunately, now we've got these modern day artificial things have been introduced. And here the Suhasins will tie this necklace made of cloth with haldi and kunku tied inside for their neck. Here is the rui flowers, which were used traditionally for the headdress. At least one couple did use it on their wedding, so I managed to get a snap of it. Here is a painting by Jivya trying to show most of the ceremonies of the wedding. This is the mandap. As you can see, the couple is being made to sit and a puja is being performed. There's a chowk in front of them. Yes, there is the banyan, the vodka jar, the blood branch. Here the branch is being brought. There's a big ceremony. It's a big procession. The tura means the band players, can you see, will come with it, and the women with the matkas are being brought. Then, of course, you have the other drum, the kangdi drum being played. You have them being fed a meal. And here, the wife and husband are carried on the hips by the best man and the best the bridesmaid, what we say. And he's also shown a lot of other ceremonies. Here they're all, of course, being given drink, partaking of the drink, and a lot of cattle. And then, of course, we have the gods. This is a Toran ceremony being drawn. There's another story about it. I don't think we will have time for that, at the boundary of the village. So some of the drawings can be really intricate, but they all talk to you because they used to be uneducated. So this is how they communicated their customs. And we need to preserve these traditions, these oral traditions. Yes, the whole village is invited. Nowadays they take contributions. Otherwise, the wedding feast has to be prepared and the local women help out. As you can see, it has to be done outdoors and on a wooden fire. Now they are asking caterers within their community to do it. They're getting resourceful and practical. The women are cutting vegetables using a koita. I had to teach my maid in the house how to use a knife. That's the irony of it, because she didn't know. But now she uses it very skillfully, including my peeler as well. Okay, so I saw the smile on your face, or I could sense it. Yes, consumerism has reached them too. Why should they not have thumbs up? They've got smartphones as well. But the hope I see is that they're still using these eco-friendly leaf cups called drone. And it's not easy to drink from them without spilling, believe me, I've tried. on many an occasion. Now we come to the jata, which is the grinding stone. Yeah. And it's used to grind haldi and kuku for the wedding ceremony. Because even though all the houses have it, very few of them use it. Originally, the daily rice quota was either ground in this, the rice after being pounded in the ukal was then ground in this to flour. And they used to eat bhakri ka chapati. Means, chawal ka bhakri. Yeah. Most of the households still have this jata and there are patterns on them. Some of them are placed in a wooden base, but they have to be level. Here we come to a very unusual storage basket. It's called the petya. It's made from palash leaves. And believe me, it's so practical because they can hang it from the suspenders. Where would they hang the plastic jar? Correct? And over time, it does shrink, but it's still functional. And they store mostly tamarind leaves in it. They sell the tamarind if they have a tamarind tree because they need the money. And believe me, the tamarind leaves serve the same purpose. I would like you to go and taste tender tamarind leaves and they are as sour as the tamarind itself. They also store dry fish in it and it doesn't smell. Must be something to do with the reaction with the leaves, I don't know. And palash is an edible leaf, so you have no tension about that. Now we come to the different varied occupations. Toddy tapping. Yes, most of them own toddy trees, but now they are specializing and they're getting toddy trappers to come to do it because they found that a lot of them were dying. Some of them drink toddy on a daily basis, but after a hard day's work, they work hard and they play hard. It is a very skillful job. If this pea cut is not made carefully, then the tree will die. Did you know that the toddy tree has to be tapped alternate years because it has to rejuvenate, as well as alternate weeks? If you tap it every week, the tree will die because the toddy is the sap of the tree. And also the bee has to be cleaned for it to flow properly. It's laborious, all right. And we complain when we have to pay 5 rupees a litre. That's the going rate today. Did you know that if you wanted Neera, you have to tell the toddy fellow a day in advance that please can you put a fresh matka for me? Because I don't want the bacteria inside to ferment it. And then he will do that. I don't know about the Neera you get at the railway stations, how much of lime they have in it to prevent the fermentation and how much of sugar they have in it. Best of luck. Yes, they're very resourceful. So they also resort to distilling their own liquor because the 4 months of the monsoon, you cannot tap the toddy trees because it's raining. They use the mawa in May, which is getting less and less, the flowers. And believe me, the alcohol from this is smoother than your Scotch whiskey. And they also use black jaggery or molasses the rest of the time. And even this has no smell or no taste. I have drunk their alcohol. Sampled it. This is Madhuka's drawing again of how they used to do it in the olden days using a matka. It's a diagrammatic picture. Another occupation they have is, you can guess what this is, honeycomb, extracting honey. And there are stories about this. They say that if they have not first prayed to the god and asked for his blessing, the fellow will fall down, or if he has committed a sin, he will fall down and get hurt. Now we come to the cult of the mother goddess, Mahalakshmi. In all her forms, it's still prevalent among the Warlis. On all important occasions, all of them will congregate at the Mahalakshmi hill, and the conical peak represents Yoni, which is the female reproductive system. In Dahanu, they have a huge festival in the month of May, the Mahalakshmi festival, March. And if you go along National Highway number 8, beyond Charoti, which is 120 kilometers from Bombay, where the turning for Dahanu is, towards Vapi, you see this special pinnacle. And now, of course, they have made a lot of preparations and rooms for people and pilgrims to stay there. Okay, we come to the main gods of the Warlis. They're all housed in devrais or sacred groves. We saw the map right in the beginning. And they house different totems for different gods. Yes. They communicate with the elements and they stand in the open. Yes, this picture was put as a promo. The three gods drawn on it. You have the Wagya on the left. Is the tiger god. You know what they tell the tiger? They tell the tiger, you look after the forest. No, sorry. You look after us and don't harm us, and we will look after the forest for you. That is an amazing equation, right? And that's what they were supposed to do when they were hunters and gatherers. And they were not scared of the tiger because they had a balance. If a tiger gets to eat one game, he's fine for a week, he will not harm you. The second and the middle one is Meghya, or the rain god. It's also called the Khambya. Normally it's represented by a stone, but here they have made a figure. And finally you have the Chandmata, or the moon god. They also show the moon in all the different phases and the sun up there. The totems remind them of their mythic past, and the ancestral spirit, it demands a molded form. So most of these totems are 3 feet high, and they have this disc-like head. Okay? The chief gods are elemental in nature. We'll come to that. Now I want you to see the difference between this picture. This is at Saragli, by the way, in Dahanu, and this one. I go back. As you can see, this one has been enclosed by a 2-foot wall. Thank God it's only 2 feet. They're slowly, unfortunately, enclosing these because there are companies who want to do CSR and not looking into the nuances of what that religion requires. They just go out and spend how much money they want to spend. I think that needs to be looked into. Okay. So here we have a stone totem. This is on the way to Sakra Dam, which is a very secluded area. The story goes that when people used to pass here, they would get haunted by evil spirits. So they decided to start worshipping these stones by applying the red tila or a diva or putting flowers. And then, of course, I don't know when the flags came in, much, much later. So these are on the way to Sakra Dam. This is, of course, in a more populated area. It's at Kankradi, if you go on the river behind. And as you can see, it is fully enclosed, but you can still see the motif of the tiger and the sun and the moon drawn on its head. He's probably the Bhagat who looks after it. Whenever I pass it, I see it has a lot of offerings of coconuts. It seems to be a very popular temple. This is again one of my favorite temples because of the Devrai. This is after a particular function, and those small stones on the side are called metkari, and they have been put there whenever an important person like the patil or the sarpanch or somebody in the village died. This is the same totem without the garland, so you can see the tiger very clearly. And again, you see this, which is the haldi and the kunku, the drawing in front. Again, the geometrical pattern, which resembles the chowk. This is the same sacred grove taken from a distance. And as you can see, this is why they are called Devrais, because biodiversity can be preserved in situ. Means exactly where it is. If you look around the landscape, you will see that the tallest tree you see is somewhere around a sacred grove when you're driving through this area. It's really amazing. Not only that, none of them will cut a single creeper also. This particular sacred grove, Karbatpada, is between Dahanu and Golwar, and it's not even 200 meters from that main road. And look at it, pristine. And look at the thickness of the creepers, of the lianas out here, like Tarzan hanging from them. Yes, it has been maintained. I used to take the guests from the Chikoo Festival to it in the first 2 years, but then it was difficult, so I started making a mock Warli Pada at the grounds itself. Amazing. Even this roof has come in later. It wasn't there initially. I'm just checking my time if I'm on schedule. Yes, I am. 100 slides, 45 minutes. Okay. This is the Wagya at Dongri Pada. Again, this is halfway between Dahanu and Golwar. It's in the open. And I witnessed the Jagran ceremony, which is an all-night ceremony, which is all-night vigil held to recharge the spirits. Here is the Bhagat performing the ceremony, and he has his helpers who are, of course, applying the red lead or the vermilion and they will eventually get possessed, and they will shake uncontrollably, and they will circumambulate all the trees and the stones in this vicinity and put tila on them. I have witnessed them on many occasions, and it's a very natural feat. You say Angatala, Angatala, Angatvara ala. Okay? They believe in the supernatural and the spirits. At Ambesari Baripada, there is this Vagoba Mandir, which has 2 totem poles. As you can see, this one is already cracking. After all, wood has a life. So approximately every 50 years, these poles have to be replaced. Of course, there's a big ceremony involved, but they have a lot of common sense, and they know that the old poles should be kept with respect, and they keep them near next to a tree. And this one is, you can see the older ones, maybe 3 of them all around. There's one other one near Lothdeo, which also has the similar thing, where I've seen 3 old totem poles kept here, because they're probably emanating some vibrations. I didn't tell you that. The Bhagat decides where to put the sacred grove, because he can sense the vibrations either coming out from the ground or from the stone, all around them. Like you have a water diviner who can sense vibrations, so can these Bhagats. Here, of course, again, it's in a populated area at Ashagar, and that's halfway between Dahanu and Ganjar. And as you can see, there's an addition of different deities entering here. And this is what we call, as a result of acculturation, they've started adopting Hindu customs. But the Warlis are very peace-loving. They don't object. They say it's fine as long as you let us follow our religion, it's fine. They didn't pick up these idols and throw them out. Compare it with an earlier picture I had, okay, where there were no idols here, and gradually they have started adding their idols here. You can see the Nandi and you can see other idols. I think there's a Ganesh there. And yeah. The Warlis believe in supernatural powers of their gods. Yes. This is the Lothdeo. And she grants children to barren women. And it works. I have stopped there many times and asked them. This is on the way to Ganjar. And the tree at the back is totally hollow. You have to see it to believe it. I don't know how it lives. Totally hollow inside. You can see through it. There are holes. Even this wall was built, and I went up to them and I said, please make sure you don't build it higher and don't enclose the stone. And then they understood. Some of them argued with the shopkeeper, the younger generation, but they listened. They listened. And I felt very good about that. I said, I've studied your religion. Stone totems can be of many shapes and sizes. Just need to have a sip of water, please. And this one is again in a beautiful sacred grove. It's a huge banyan tree with, of course, the adventitious roots hanging down. And that's probably a fishing net at the back, because there's a huge stream flowing next to it. So the stones can be of any size and any shape. Sometimes we have these wooden memorials called chedas or veers, okay, where they draw in commemoration of some brave man or a warrior. You see a lot of them in many places. And some of these will have a hole on the top, these totem poles. It's amazing. Each one is unique and different. Now we come to the annual Gaudev Puja at Raitali. Again, this has been fully enclosed. But the stone is probably original, as you can see, because it's not chiseled or fixed. And they make this mural of the Vagya on it with red lead, layers and layers over the years. And he's conducting a puja here. You can see the bananas, the betel leaf, the supari, the coconuts. And all the villagers contribute, the youngsters especially, because they're going to have a party after this. Okay? They're probably going to have sacrifice chickens, maybe a goat, and of course, alcohol or toddy. Here you can see the senior Bhagat is training up the younger member. It is a very arduous training. They have to go for 1 month into the forest, live on their own. A lot of restrictions are followed, and very few of them are willing to do it. That is why I call them the endangered species. I don't know if the customs and traditions are going to last for more than 1 generation. And that's what we have to think about here. Because it's a heritage too precious to be lost. Yes, when I got married and came, all the women working on my farm used to have this ugly, what should I call it, like a burn mark either above or below their navel. And I said, "Hey, kai jhala?" And he said, "Dab, dila, Bhagat ni dam dila." I said, "Means what?" They cauterize it. They heat this piece of metal. Now there are two versions to this. One says, when you have some pain or you're not well, you go to the Bhagat, and he obviously uses this iron. And the pain of that is so much for 7 days that you forget the original pain. The other story is that it gets rid of evil spirits. As I told you, they believe in the supernatural, and so it gets rid of the evil spirits. So he's the Dhak Bhagat or the Dhak Bhagat, and he's giving the Damya. They even used to do tattoos, okay? Either in the forehead. Yes. All the Bhagats have magical powers, and you have to have faith. This is the necklace was tied to my maid when she had jaundice, with the string and the pieces of wood. And within 3 days, it became longer and yellow, and her jaundice went away. She came back to work. And that is what is amazing about it. They have a lot of other home remedies also. I tried some for arthritis, and they work. This is a very elaborate puja called the Kuldev Puja, and it's being done at Jawar. Okay? Here, it's called, the famous part of it is this Gangli Bhagat. Not all of them can play this instrument, and it's very difficult to play. And the silver gods, I will show you in the next picture, are housed in these bins. And only one house in the whole village has the honor of keeping them. They will take them out, they will wash them, clean them, pray to them, recharge them, put them into the fresh bed of rice, so it has to be done after the rice is harvested. Okay? They have the pumpkin, they have the kati, they make this little hanging thing up there. And here are the gods. I never thought they would have these gods. I'd seen the picture once, but I was able to see them. I have many more pictures about them if we can't show them all here. This is the hand-pounded red rice, which we like so much. And these are the baskets which are used. This is called the Himai Devi. Yes. No Warli puja is complete without an animal sacrifice. And there's a very interesting story of how they decide which animal has to be sacrificed and how many. First, let me show you both the animal sacrifices. Here again, both of them are bhagats. There were 2 bhagats for the ceremony. And they have to offer a few drops of blood, and then they will take the chicken outside and do the needful. And this is again at that first place, where at the end of that puja, they offered a goat and sarabi. As you can see, they even put sheaves of rice on top, because they invoke the blessings of the Kansari goddess and the Gautari goddess and the Dhartari Mata. Okay, this is the story. The Bhagat takes a few grains of rice, and he takes 1 lota or kalash of water, and he drops them inside while praying, chanting, of course. And then he starts asking the questions. Tula kai paije? What do you want? Okay, you want 5 coconuts? Is that okay? If the rice comes back up, it means no, it's not satisfied. So then again, he has to put some more rice and repeat the question. Okay, do you want 10 coconuts? If the rice comes back up, he repeats the question. Do you want 1 chicken? Do you want 5 chickens? And eventually it culminates in, okay, are you going to be appeased finally by the goat? And that is how the story goes, and I have witnessed this. And of course, there is symbolism of why the kakadi is used, the cucumber, and the chauli is used, which is grown, everything grown in their own fields. All these pujas invite the spirits. Yes, as I told you, they are very God-fearing people, but some of them have magical powers. And as you can see, this gentleman, he gets possessed, and he's shaking uncontrollably, and he will circumambulate the totem poles. A lot of them will turn by turn. And it seems that before a boy reaches maturity or before he gets married, he has to experience this once. Because I'd seen it at Jawar when the Bhagat would decide which boy should come into the circle and try to get possessed. So they start off just by shaking uncontrollably till finally they don't have control over it. Yes, some people think they're doing it purposely. They start it off like that. Here we come to another puja called the Raval Puja. This is conducted only once in 5 years because it's to thank the gods. It's also for the good health of the whole village. Especially if there's a calamity or there's a problem or there's a drought or there's a bad crop, then they decide to have it. They pool their resources together, or they get a sponsor, as it was in this case. And what is important is the mandap, which is made along with the marigold flowers, and the yoke of the cows are hung here because that is part of Gautari. Correct? The villagers are being fed, especially the children. They start with the children. And these were the sponsors, okay, who had organized this for their good health and for the good health of their village. This was about 10 or 15 years ago, right near my house at Kandolpara. Now we come to the Warli paintings. Yes. As you can see, Warli paintings tell stories. Here you can see all the stages where the rice soil is being... Oh! Okay. The soil is being collected. And then it's being pounded. And then it is molded on the potter's wheel. Then it is beaten into the shape of the pot. Finally, it is fired. And then it's being taken to the market for sale. So this is how their paintings used to tell stories. This is a very interesting experience that I had, which I had to relate. This is, of course, a flyer of an exhibition held in 2018 in France. This is to put our organization. Yes, a gentleman in charge of him, Christian, came to my house and he saw the mural on my wall. And he said, can you introduce me to these painters? So I took him to meet them. And he also wanted to meet a lady painter. So then we went to Manki Bai. On the flyer, they have put Manki Bai's painting. As you can see, she's feeding chicken here. And the good news is Manki Bai, at the age of 60, went to Paris, went to France, stayed there for a month, did lots of paintings. And she sat for the first time in her life in an aeroplane. She is uneducated. Yes, but she totally floored them with the tribal folk songs that she had. She could show them some of their customs, and of course, wearing her Nawari sari and her paintings. So for me, that was an amazing experience. She's, of course, very, very indebted to me. First, she was like, Jayala hol kai, Musta fasaute. I said, nai, geun janar. They had to paint 100 paintings over a period of 3 months, which they chose. They were paid for them, right? And take them with them. And then they do some paintings there. Rajesh Moore also went there. Actually, it was his mural on the wall near my house. And not only have France, but he has even been to Japan after that. Till today, I have not been to Japan. So it makes me very proud to know that they're able to carry their art and spread it to so many other places of the globe, as did Jivya Soma Mashi, of course. And Akiko says that his trees, paintings are like lace, which they really are. They've started making artifacts now, and he paints them because his friend makes them, who has a workshop at Vikramgarh. Very resourceful. An Adivasi man is conducting a workshop for other Adivasis. This is one of Rajesh's painting. He is the tree expert. He can make you, I have a repertoire of his 25 or 30 different types of trees. And he is evolving, as you can see. The shapes of the trees, he can show you the trunk. And every painting will have a little story, a little snippet. Something, this is of course the story of the king, the Raja. It's very elaborate. We do not have the time, unfortunately, to go into their stories here. And this is called the Dev Pakshi. Some will tell you it's black and some will tell you it's white. I still have to find out. Here now we come to Jivya Soma Mashe and his wife. This is in the very early days at his old house. As you can see, the gangri is at the back and his wall is still made of reeds. Yes. And probably his floor is still kacha. And he's doing this painting of the totem pole. This is much later in his Pakka house. The government, of course, gave him, and he got a Padma Shri award because he was the first painter to have taken the paintings from the walls to canvas. It's a long story, but in short, I will tell you, he chaperoned or accompanied 3 Suhasins because only the women used to paint them. Okay, this is 1970. And when they reached Delhi after the day 1, the women said, it's all you know how to pay is the chowk. We can paint just variations of the chowk. And said, what are we going to show to Indira Gandhi on the second day? Jivya said, okay, if you want, I'll paint you village scenes. So initially, Warli paintings were done about their festivals and their village scenes and not mythological. Now they have started painting stories to which they have heard as an oral tradition. and they are preserving them that way. Here, Jivya still uses, as you can see, the bamboo stick, which they chew, okay, and make it into a paintbrush, and the white rice paste. The rice paste, which has some gum in it. It used to be natural gum, now they use Fevicol. And here he's painting the fishing net, which I showed you in that scene. Oh man, look at it, looks so intricate. But, you know, I've read that it's going to a sort of trance. For them, it's a form of meditation. Because I was like, Kantala na yete kaitula, don't you get bored doing this? Oh, I didn't tell you about the Warli dialect. Okay, it's different. It's a mixture of Marathi, Gujarati, Sanskrit, and they say, you know, Japa Ugra, and Ag Petwa. And of course, I've learned some of it. When I conduct workshops in Marathi, I tell them, my Marathi is going to be Belpuri because I have learned half Warli Marathi into it. Okay. Now we come to Janu Raute, who was the first painter I came in contact with after I got married. He lives 2 kilometers from my house in Raitali. He's uneducated as well. And today he is painting, as you can see, he's painted the Lagna Chowk on canvas and he's selling it. And he has a good market because he has a very, very good hand. This is his son, Sanjay Raute, who we saw sitting in front of the Chowk. And the success story I would like to tell you is, Sanjay is an 11th standard pass student. And he used to accompany Janu for my workshops. When school kids, college kids come, and I used to conduct workshops, maybe on a monthly basis. And he realized the amount of respect his father was getting. And so he decided to start painting. If he would have started earlier, he probably would have been a better painter today, but he's getting there. A researcher had come and asked him that if you would get a fixed job with a fixed income, earning slightly more than this, what could I say? It's not reliable how many paintings you're going to sell. It's not a fixed income. Okay? Uncertain. What would you still rather do? And he said, no, I would rather be a painter. I see hope. At least I know the Warli tradition of Warli paintings will carry on to the next generation if we have more cases like this. So please encourage Warli painters by buying their paintings. Again, this is Madhu Vaduka's way of showing schematic diagrams, okay, pictures. This is again 2 Vagyas. He has names for all these, and I have put them into a book which I have printed, which I will show you at the end. There are children playing, and this is a special god, Chera. Yes, they're experimenting with different fabrics. Okay, this is one of their gods. As you can see, who can tell me? Of course, I can't hear you. The Trishul in their hand and the snake around his leg. So they're trying to show Lord Shiva. And yet, what is in that pumpkin in his hand? They have the story of Genesis. They have the Noah's Ark story in their creation earth stories. And even Madhukar has even drawn detailed pictures about it. But they use a pumpkin instead of a boat. Rajesh had drawn one of these paintings where it says that they aspire to reach out to the sky. And they're getting more and more, what should I say, adventurous with their paintings, and they should. The first time I went to Jivya's house, not first time, maybe some years ago, he was painting a local train. I was aghast. I said, Jivya, ye to kai karte hai? Warli painting hai kai? He said, me kai karu? Paris madhi mala sangitla. The Paris Museum commissioned him to do a local train. At that time, I was not ready to accept this. And here was this master painter doing it. Okay, you have to move with the times, I realize that. And today you will see helicopters, computers, and the works in all their drawings, especially on artifacts. When they do a mobile stand, so they're obviously going to draw that too. The Warli paintings have very simple geometric patterns. These are the kind of cards we use when we have workshops for the children. The triangle comes from the mountains or a tree. The circle is, of course, the sun and the moon. Then we have the triangle, the circle, and the square. The square is from the hut or the wara, the piece of land, okay, which is man-made. As I told you, they will know that the crab, how many legs it has. The ant will have 6 legs. The fish and the other creatures, accordingly, will be portrayed. This is the basing which they wear on their head. Here she's feeding grain to the cattle. There is the grinding stone. Yes. Dahanu boasts of Tarpa Chowk. Yes. And the Adivasi Jagtik Divas nowadays is celebrated on the 9th of June with a lot of pomp. And it's celebrated all over Dahanu Taluka with dancing. As you can see, these women doing it. And this is a chowk. Dahanu now has a tarpa chowk with a sculpture of the tarpa dancers as well in it. You can see them holding their hands behind their heads, and there's the tarpa prayer. Unfortunately, I can't show you a tarpa dance here, but you can go on YouTube and you will see amazing tarpa dances. This is the way I see the future, creating awareness about the Warlis, their sustainable lifestyle, and their indigenous knowledge. This is the hope we have. I go to school exhibitions and I put up my charts and we discuss this, okay, to create awareness. Because people have to realize. This is the Chikoo Festival, okay, which started many years ago. And today it has reached gigantic proportions in Warli. So now I have a mock Warli Para there, which at least the city folk can get an idea what these people, what the Bhagat is. And he will do a demonstration, okay, of his enactment. They will also get familiar with some of the artifacts that they use, like the ukhal and the musal, and carrying the rab basket and wearing the urli, okay, and trying to, use the supra. And the kids love to play with the chicks. Yes, I am going to read this to you. The Warlis, because this encapsulates everything about them. The Warlis live simply. They were self-reliant and self-sufficient. Their lifestyle was based on true principles of sustainability. I didn't go into all the other things that they do and use. The pace at which life moves is very gentle and relaxed. Unfortunately, the customs are changing at a very fast pace due to urbanization and, of course, external influences. This is leading to a loss of traditional knowledge. Indigenous knowledge is sustainable knowledge. So the Warlis teach us to press the pause button and to take a closer look at life. We have a lot to learn from them. But do we have the time to pause and listen? It has taken us a pandemic to realize the importance of simple living. And these people have been doing it for eons and centuries. And they're a very satisfied lot, no matter how poor they are. And thank you. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. Looking forward to your questions. Yes, Farah.
Thanks, Phiroza. That was indeed a pictorial journey, especially the juxtaposition of the photographs and the paintings that really brought things to light. There are lots of questions. I hope well prepared. I'll start off with the last question first.
Okay.
Women seem to have an equal status in everything except religion. Is that a fact? And is that a reason for that?
Why except religion? The Suhasins,
women,
the priestesses, except, yes, the women.
So they do play a role in everything. Women seem to have an equal status in everything except religion.
Why except religion? On the contrary, they were the priestesses, they were conducting the wedding ceremonies, and the girl was getting dowry. So I don't know whether that person was listening.
Okay. All right. That's Phiroza for you. Frank, forthright. Okay. Let's hold off all the questions until all of them are answered.
Okay.
Let's move on. So what is the geographical area over which the Warlis are spread out? Do you have Warlis in Gujarat, for instance?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. On my desktop, which is gone away, I have a picture, a map of where all they are spread. Yes. Up to the downs, they are spread there. But not as concentrated as in this belt.
Yeah. What about south of Dahanu Taluka?
Up to, well, in Aryamil colony, there's some families living.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's towards Bombay, right? That's south.
Yeah. You showed a lot of building techniques. I think we have an architect in our midst.
Okay.
Any of these techniques can be used for houses now with the skills of construction, and can they be used for the benefit of the Warlis?
Yes. I didn't have time to talk about. Sorry.
No, go on.
I didn't have time to talk about the Noko project. The Japanese who have been were coming here for 3 to 4 years, doing the wall art project, did a Noko project. Nako means enough. They thought that was amazing because they're not greedy, these people. They don't waste anything, the Warlis. So they got all the stuff ready to build this house. They got the master carpenter to come, who was the painter's father. And within 3 weeks, from scratch, they built a house. They have documented it. And I've asked them for a CD. So we will preserve this documentation, because I think 2 generations down the line, this is going to be lost, because they're going to use cement poles and AC sheets. So if somebody realizes and wants to build this again, they have built 2 model houses in a farm, which I'm trying to convince them to maybe open it to ecotourism. Let's see how that works out. Yeah, they're very possessive about it. And absolutely, absolutely.
We have a Parsi in the audience who says he sees a lot of similarity between Warli and Parsi customs, like the chalk and the Madasaro and the Manda.
I'm not going into that. I'm not going to that.
Have Parsis adopted tribal customs from South Gujarat?
I really don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Somebody wants to know where
before people log out, someone of them asked me that, is there a book that we have on Warli customs? I saw the questions are coming up on their own in front of me without even me this thing it. So this is a book which I translated. Shall I hold it further back? The name is The Mystical World of Warlis. It costs 200 rupees by Madhukar Wadu. Okay? You can get it from Motion Press or Amazon, and he gets his royalty. And it has more pictures than writing inside, and it explains most of their paintings in very much of detail.
There was a question, what does a tarpa sound like? But I guess you'll refer him to YouTube for that, correct?
They wanted to hear to see the tarpa dance.
No, they wanted to hear what a tarpa sounds like. I guess that should be available on.
If I would have been at home, I was pouring too much. I had a tarpa there, but of course I can't play it. I can just hear a tune. Or just go to YouTube, yeah. Amazing.
I'm sure. Is liquor still very important in their lifestyle?
Yes, they work so hard. At the end of the day, and first they never had television. So then what form of recreation do they have? So it relaxes them, no? How many of us want to go home on a tiring day, or we've done something and have a beer and relax over it? So why not? And the toddy trees are in their own compound. Okay, it's supposed to be a health drink. Yes. And I haven't seen so much of, there's always one drunk in every village. Yes, of course. There is, somebody who couldn't control it. But otherwise, I don't think it's created a problem.
So you talked about toddy trees. Are a lot of these Warli people owners of land? Do they own the toddy trees? Do they own the land?
Yes, of course. Reshare the name of the book. Abhishek, last time. The Mystical World of the Warlis, okay, by Madhukar Wadu. Madhukar Wadu. Wadu. Wadu.
So you are looking at the chapter.
See, when the British got them out of the forest, they gave them all land at the bases. Okay? They own land. Now, of course, there's a lot of politics involved. They're getting the 712 extracts on their name, and the government is giving them money and grants, and then giving them some AC sheets and housing materials. So they're getting a lot of stuff. I paid the told me he was.
Can you talk? Yeah. Go on. Go on.
No, tell me.
Finish your. Okay. Can you talk specifically about how they venerate flora and fauna in their art? You talked about the musical instruments, the dancing, the customs.
Oh my God. Their trees and their flowers, all the drawings, the original drawings had flowers and trees in them. And they don't do any puja without the tree or a flower. Very, very important. They will not cut the tree. So that's how they venerate it. They don't use color, yes. They only use black and white, but still they will show you the different textures. It's amazing. It's amazing.
The question was, are they still medicine men amongst them, or do they go to normal dispensaries for any ill health? You didn't mention about the...
Bhagat, both. They will first go to the Bhagat. See, unfortunately, they're losing faith. My housemate will tell me, okay, give me some tablets. I've got loose motions. I've got a headache. But she doesn't get all right. Okay, like when she got jaundice and all, then she goes to the Bhagat. It depends. What we really don't have cures for, I still haven't asked anybody about the COVID. I need to do that. The Bhagat. Yeah.
Was this area that you spoke about, this belt which the Warlis inhabit, was it ever under the Jawahar royal family?
No, there's a story about it. There's a lot of history, but not under the Jawahar royal family. So a lot of them in Jawahar.
Okay.
The history is colonial rule. Then you have the Damodpat. I don't want to go into all that. It's so theoretical. Okay. You have the Zamindar, the Saukars, And they have been exploited in the past. Okay, they have been exploited in the past, definitely.
The legend is that most tribal women in the Thane district used to go topless, and the Rani of Jawahar introduced the concept of using a choli about a century ago. Is that correct?
Possibly a century ago is 100 years ago. So where am I going to get a living man who's 100 years old and ask him? But till today, the river next to my boundary, they still have a bath there, topless. As I told you, they don't have any taboo for premarital sex, and they're not, and they stay within their community. So they have a lot of freedom. I mean, they're changing in front of you. The water, they got wet, she changes her choli in front of you. It's just, So far, they've not had any bad experiences. Maybe on my farm, like when I got married, I thought I was a liberated woman, and I was like, wow, the woman smokes with the guy, drinks with the guy, lives with the guy, and I thought I'm liberated. Amazing, and she gets dowry. I really thought that maybe.
That is so Phiroza. The question is, are the totem poles that you showed very old? Because the ones which you showed in the beginning, they didn't seem very old.
No, all of them are. All of them are. They keep painting them, no?
Okay.
All of them obviously are. Yeah, they're just being reinstalled and tiled around and something built around them. But the original piece, like you saw the one inside the Draikali, like broken, uneven, absolutely. Most of them are old.
Sorry,
tell me.
The question that you were expecting has arrived. What is the population of the Warlis?
Okay, I made Dhanashree check it. It's 65%, but it's nearly 3 lakhs. Thank you, Dr. Ashish. He paid me a very big compliment. Yeah.
Is the community growing or is it becoming smaller?
The question I asked Dhanashree is, when have they done the last census? So how do they know this? But it's not becoming smaller. No. And believe me, they won't even marry in the same clan. The same family, they believe in that, the bloodlines. It's amazing. So you don't see many abnormal children. They're very particular about that. And definitely they're having lots of kids. So I don't think it's getting smaller. But about the customs being eroded, yes. Community is not getting smaller. I don't think so. I go into their villages and they're having a problem now. The sons are staying with the parents instead of building a house next door. Which was an amazing concept.
Yes. The white color that you talked about, it was a mixture of something and natural gum. What was that?
The rice paste and natural gum. It used to be the cheek maybe even from the rui flour, the latex, was used. But now they're using, even Jibia was using Fevicol towards the end, but he was still using the rice paste. But it's much more laborious. So all of them use poster colors now. Because the rice paste doesn't last. That painting doesn't last. It gets eaten up and it falls off. So they want to preserve it. That's what they use.
And what about the background? The
geru. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of cow dung and geru. And geru is red soil which is naturally available. I'm like, show me where. The stores in Dahanu sell it. It's very cheap. But I've seen it in some places. It's a naturally occurring soil. So like in Matheran, you have the red soil, correct? Mineral. It's the mineral which gives it the color.
Okay. What about the instances of diseases? Is there a lot of it?
No, I don't think so. Maybe a little bit of skin disease, especially lack of B12. But those who work on the Chikoo farm, my gynec used to always tell me, none of them have a problem because they're getting so much of iron. But no, not really.
So these skin diseases would be due to what?
I'm talking about the lack of vitamin B12. So they used to get patches. That's all I have seen.
And in your experience, does the younger generation get higher education?
They are. The fallout rate is more than there are a lot of ashram shalas. The kids are going to, and then getting alienated from their roots. I went to the ashram shala in Ganjar and I did a workshop, and when I asked them how many of them knew of Jivya Soma Mashe, some 20% did not. I was shocked. And he's one of Padmashri and he lives in Ganjar, 2 kilometers from their school. But what to do? Some of them are getting educated. And somebody even asked me here about government jobs. I really don't know about that. But they struggle. They find it difficult. Yes.
So, do you find that a lot of them are migrating to big cities, Thane, Mumbai, what?
Where would they stay? See, where would they stay? Not a big city. Maybe suburb. If they're getting, as long as they get enough jobs here, they go as migrant laborers. But otherwise, I don't know. No, I don't think so. Not for an office job.
Okay.
They would get enough jobs at that level in Dahanu. There are factories, unfortunately, but it's okay.
Okay. And I think we're moving on to the last question. What kind of workshops do you conduct?
Yes, I read that. First of all, I put up these charts. I have a lot of charts, a lot of pictures. Most of the pictures I show you, or some of them I have laminated. And then we talk about it. We ask them questions. And then I get a painter to do a small Warli painting workshop. If I can try to conduct it in a Warli village where they can go around and ask questions. Some of them is from schools there. The last chapter had Warli as a chapter. So for SSL, you know, they had to do some project. They would come, they would come. And when one school came, there was, why didn't you tell us they were so poor? We would have brought them stuff. They bought everything from the local shop, you know, and gave it to them, which was all crap. So then the next time the school said, tell us, we will carry rations, plastic buckets, mugs. So I allowed them to do that. So they did bring that along. But they realized that these people, the last question, which I used to add in the questionnaire, was, are you satisfied? And they were very surprised to see most of them said yes. Maybe ignorance is bliss. I don't know. But I really think that both the gurus which I have say, you know, simple living, live in the present moment, and they do this.
Great. Thank you, Phiroza. It was a great evening. Have a safe trip back to Crescent Corner.
I will.
And we look forward to having you at the Khaki lab with one of your painters to do some things live for us.
Oh, we will.